a wonderful young lady in the house with me, Miss Laura.
Thank you for calling me young. That's nice.
I call it real. Hey, keeping it real. Look at her. She looks amazing tonight. We're going to be talking about something super exciting. Let me just fix this camera real quick. I'm not used to having guests in the house, and man, we have a lady in the house, and so we got to act right tonight.
It's fine to me.
Yes, indeed. I want to welcome our guest on YouTube tonight. This is going to be an exciting topic that we're going to be discussing. You know, it's a real serious issue. And as you come in on, please feel free to share this video out, invite your friends, invite people that you know that are concerned about their financial well-being. Be right back with you. I'm a real perfectionist when it comes to making sure things are right. Sorry, I don't mean to make you guys dizzy.
Nobody gets motion sickness.
Yes, I hope no one gets motion sickness, especially our Florida friends. We have a lot of water and we're around bridges all the time. All right, we're going to dive on into this. But yes, please share the video out. Make sure your friends, anyone that you know that's financially conscious and, you know, just want to do better and make sure their families are taken care of. Tonight's conversation that we're going to be discussing is 3 strategies so that your financial legacy to your family is not left up to GoFundMe. I mean, you know, Laura, you work in the financial industry, and thank you for coming in tonight and just visiting with me. You work in the financial industry. You work with families. You help families. You what exactly is can people call you in the financial world?
Absolutely. Or what can they call me? Like title?
Yes.
Financial coach, financial planner, financial advisor,
okay.
Financial educator, and there's, you know, multiple things you could.
So since you coach so many people and you see so many different things, what have been some of the more sadder situations, I guess you might say, as it relates to this topic of when something happens to a family and then there has to be GoFundMe or different types of
Well, I think the hardest thing that we see in our industry is when it's not if, it's when, you know, crisis comes, when life happens, when the hurricane is heading our way, and you get the phone call of, you know, there's been a diagnosis, or there may be a diagnosis, or there's some other kind of loss, a job loss, anything like that. And the first thing they want to know is, have I done everything I can do? Have I done everything right? And my hope for all of my clients, my goal is to be able to say, yes, you're good. You're protected. You've planned. You've saved. You've done what you need to do, and you're good. And so many people delay and put off and procrastinate, or they just don't know. And then when that life event happens, sometimes it's too late. There's not much that we can do now. And that's probably the hardest thing for me to see. When I see GoFundMe accounts come up, you know, and I think GoFundMe is wonderful.
Yeah, and I did want to make sure people understand this is not a negative thing about GoFundMe at all.
I have donated to GoFundMes, and I will continue to donate to GoFundMes when I'm able to. I think that it definitely has its place, and it's definitely filled a gap for so many families. Sometimes, though, when I see them come up on my Facebook feed with either friends or friends of friends, I just think, oh, gosh, if I could have had a conversation with them 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, and we could have put some things in place and started some things in motion that could have made this time in their life feel differently, look differently. I can't fix the emotional impact of loss, whether it be job loss, illness, or death, but I can certainly partner with you to make the financial aspect of that a lot less daunting. And that's kind of what drives me. My passion is to make sure that people know that what they're doing is working, or if it's not working, or where we can shore some things up, where you're exposed, where you're vulnerable. A lot of my process is very educational. It's mostly a lot of, did you know?
Okay. So let me just make sure that we want to say one thing. You're welcome to ask questions tonight. However, tonight's broadcast is not going to get super, at least on Laura's end, because of compliance reasons. We're on a live video feed on Facebook and so forth. So if you choose to make a question, which we advise, make a question. If we do not answer your question on air tonight, she will inbox you, or I will help connect you with her, because for compliance reasons, we have to just make sure that, you know, we keep her in business,
Yeah.
because we don't want any kind of problems. But tonight, what we're going to dive into, what I want to do, and then it's going to be a conversation between us, but I'm going to go over 3 strategies, because we realize there is a serious problem with financial preparedness. It was a question for the day on my news feed on Facebook, and there were some very interesting comments that we noticed. And there was one comment that a lady mentioned how at the time of death, it becomes one of the most stressful times for families. Mm-hmm. And families tend to have breakups mm-hmm. around that time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a real issue. And I know in growing up, I've seen it in families so many times. The person wasn't prepared, did not leave adequate resources behind. And man, trying to pass the plate. Nobody else has money. And so now we're looking at very cheap funerals and so forth, or whatever the final celebration of life happens to be. I'm sure you may have seen that.
Yeah. I think we've all experienced it, no matter what in your profession or what your life is like. We've all experienced either ourselves, or we've seen people go through loss and see families divide for good because plans weren't in place, or they weren't adequate plans, or there was just a lot of unknown that people didn't, they never sat down with someone and made sure that things were shored up.
We're getting some feedback that there was something blocking it. So let me make this camera better for you guys. How's that look? Does that look better?
Yeah, I think that looks better.
Okay, I apologize.
I probably looked like you can only see me from here up.
I apologize. Again, because we're live streaming on 2 different, we're on Facebook and we're on YouTube, so we have 2 different cameras set up. So I hope that's better for everyone. So let's get into these 3 strategies. Grab your pen, grab your paper, and we're going to dive into this, and we're going to take some notes. And I want you to be very, very diligent about this. Number 1 strategy that you can implement for yourself and your family is mindset. When I say mindset, also I want you to add into that education. So many families, would you agree, Laura, that money, the education behind money, how to handle money, been transferred generationally?
Yeah. A lot of people don't, I mean, they either aren't, educated at all, mostly because their parents didn't know. Their grandparents didn't know. Every generation has had different obstacles to overcome. And sometimes you're just so focused on in that moment. And, when we know better, we do better. And so, yes, there is a gap of people just generally they just don't know. Yeah. They have good intentions. And we get a lot of mainstream thinking of, here's what my dad did, or here's what mom did, so that's what I'll do. And we don't know any better.
And when we look at mainstream thinking versus how just the reality of what's going on, I find it very sad, and it's not judgmental in any way, but when retirees get to retirement work as a greeter, not to put any jobs down, it's not that they choose to just be busy because they don't want to be at home. It's a must.
Yeah.
So then if that is a must, imagine when they pass on, what's left over. So when you look at a family situation, if your grandparents did not teach your parents, therefore you may or may not know, it goes back to this story that Zig Ziglar shared many decades with his audiences, and he talked about the woman that cooked the holiday ham. Have you heard that story?
No.
Wait, he talked about how this wife cooks the holiday ham, and she always cut the ends off the ham. And her husband asked her one day, "Why do you cut the ends off the ham?" She said, "Because that's what my mom did."
Mm-hmm.
So they went and asked Mom, "Why do you cut the ends off the holiday ham?" "Because that's what my mom did." They go all the way back to a couple of grandmothers ahead of time or beyond, not too many, but they said, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "Because my pan was too small."
Mm-hmm.
So all this time, this good juice in this ham has been seeping out because the ends have been getting cut off, because that's just how people were taught. And unfortunately, when you look at society today, 95% of the wealth in the world is controlled by 5% of the population. That leaves 5% of the population clamoring for 95% of the wealth. And so it goes back to what a mentor of mine taught me is never follow the crowd. Whatever the crowd is doing, and you probably tell your children this, to not listen to peer pressure. The other kids are doing bad, you want your kid over here doing different. Even though they may be getting laughed at and poked fun at, if they do opposite of what others are doing, probably safer.
Yeah.
When it comes to money and finance, most do not take the time to educate themselves. And that's the point of strategy number 1, is being willing. Strategy number 2 is asset protection. How would you define asset protection?
Layers to it. I think most people think in the terms of insurance
Mm-hmm.
as a way to protect, and it is certainly one very,
It's a piece of it.
it's a piece. But you also, a lot of people have their finances exposed in ways that they don't even realize. They don't understand their auto insurance coverage. They don't understand their homeowners. They don't understand what an umbrella policy is. They don't understand, just a lot of those areas that we just kind of 15 minutes to save 15%. We want to spend the least amount of time and the least amount of money. And that could be a gaping, it's like a hole in your roof in your house that you just don't, acknowledge. And because right now it's not bothering you, but then when the storm comes, it's a big problem.
Exactly.
And, they just probably don't even realize maybe the hole's even there. It's not a good analogy, but it really does come down to looking at everything that you have that is in place to protect you. And is it correct? Do you understand it? And before you spend time thinking you're going to grow your net worth, is it insulated? Is it protected from lawsuit? Is it protected from creditors? Is it protected from, a marriage, when a marriage splits, how's everything happen? Are you, the biggest thing is lawsuits. So those threats to our overall, our income, our wealth building.
Well, you say lawsuits, and you mentioned car insurance. I saw a customer the other day that had the state minimum on their car insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And I just so happened to look at a deck page, and I just asked, were you aware that you're now, before I say that, you're an expert. The state minimum, if anyone is carrying state minimum on their car insurance, do you recommend that?
No.
And why not?
Well, you have to understand, I think most people, there's the misconception of what, and I'm not a P&C expert.
Yeah, she doesn't sell car insurance, nor do I.
No, this is what I know about it. That if you carry 1020, or whatever you carry, 100, 300, 25, whatever it is, if you are in a car accident and you are found to be at fault, the insurance company will cover, let's say you have 1020, they will cover up to $10,000 for injury or loss of life for the driver or one person in the car, and up to $20,000 for all occupants in a car. You are responsible for the rest. So most people don't understand that, because they'll say, "Oh, I'm fully covered." That doesn't mean.
Well, you are fully covered up to that amount.
And Geico will cut that check for $10,000 quick and step out of the situation. Their obligation is met. And if there is a lawsuit, they're coming to you for the rest. And that's what we mean by protecting your assets. Do you understand your coverage? Is it adequate? Do you fully know what that means? And now where are you vulnerable? You know, could your income be could your income be, I'm trying to say here.
Garnished.
Garnished, thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the word.
Yes.
Could your income be garnished? Do you have assets that are in an account that is vulnerable to lawsuit? Where are you moving your money around? So people are spending time trying to find the magic way to grow without making sure that you're protecting today before you move towards growing for tomorrow.
I mean, those are wise words that you just said right there, because the assets that you own need to be protected. But then how many people seem to forget, what is our number one asset that you possess on earth today? It's ourselves.
It's your ability to make an income.
Yeah.
Most people think it's their home or maybe a business they own. Most people, if I ask them what's your most valuable asset, they will say, my home. But your home is worth a fraction of what you will bring into your family's life in the form of an income. So if that's not protected first, because my guess is if your home was worth the same amount as what you're going to bring in over 20, 30 years as your income, you probably wouldn't be working, because you're talking into $2 or $3 million sometimes. And if you own a $2 or $3 million home, then you're probably bringing in, you see where I'm going.
Sure.
There's always going to be kind of a mismatch. And so protecting that and making sure that it is, that if, that's one of the biggest threats to your financial life is a loss of an income from illness, injury, and ultimately if you were to pass away, that will now affect that income that you were going to bring into your family's life stops. So,
protection. This is where understanding insurance is super important, and there's a variety of things that happen with insurance, and there are so many misconceptions. I will tell you this, that oftentimes people look at life insurance. I'm not a licensed life insurance agent, so I'm going to talk about this. So I want to make sure that we keep Laura safe. Is that okay?
Go for it.
We want to keep Laura safe. Here's the thing. So many times people look at life insurance as, well, I will never benefit from this, so why should I have it? So why do I want to leave? This is what I've heard. I used to sell life insurance, by the way. I've heard people say, why should I leave a bunch of money? This is men. We're stupid sometimes. They will say, why should I leave a bunch of money for some other dude to come lay up next to my family? I've heard that before. Okay. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. You got kids. But then people misunderstand life insurance because they think it's only something that's going to benefit the beneficiaries when they pass. But many do not understand how to leverage and use life insurance while they're alive. Do your customers find that to be, are their minds blown once you educate them about that? And I'm not asking you to go too deep into that, but.
Oh yeah, I mean, they just generally don't. They genuinely don't know. They just associate it with a death benefit, and they don't understand just the multiple uses that are there, as well as a death benefit that will benefit. Actually, just touching base on that, what you just said. It is an interesting mindset, but most of the time it comes from people they just don't understand. It's a lack of education. Type of response will let you know where they're at with their level of knowledge.
Going back to strategy number one with the mindset, there's a problem up here. There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
If I was to give you a list of names and I said these families and I said Kennedy, automatically what would you associate? JFK, but Kennedy, that name means money, generational wealth.
Sure.
If I said J.P. Morgan, or if I said, what are some other historical popular names that people can associate money with?
Well, look at the big banks, the Wall Street banks. I mean, even like if you want to look at a bank that's that's national and healthy and strong. It's like a Bank of America. If you look at some of those big guys that have been around for longer than any of us, and probably longer than our parents and our grandparents, look at the strategies that they're using, and it might surprise you.
Yeah, well, and that's where I was going with that, is because one of the things that people just really don't understand, when you talk about leaving a legacy, the tax code, see, and we talked about this last week, it's important to understand that the tax code, there are things that will never change in our tax code. I don't care what the transfer is done, and it's handled in the tax code. Magnificent things about a properly structured, properly funded life insurance contract, and again, I'm not here to sell you any life insurance, is that it transfers tax-free, it can be accessed tax-free, and when you die, the benefit is tax-free. So when you look at families in historical families with money, money transfers through those families, a large portion of it, not all of it, through insurance. And when you can keep tax-free wealth transferring from generation to generation, and the next generation is armed with strategy number one, and that's education. Here's how you keep this tax-free money tax-free, and it continues to blossom and blossom, starts businesses, starts things, and that's how families stay in money. So let's go to strategy number 3. Strategy number 3, write this down, is proper investments. I'm not here to advise you on any investments, nor is Laura. We're not here to sell you any investments, but it's about going back to strategy 1, learning investments and understanding investments and business. So write investment/business. One way to prepare your family is to start a business. And going back, understanding tax codes, keeping majority of your money working in your business so that that can transfer tax-free, or not everything tax-free, but at least transfer the assets of that business so that it continues to work with the family. And that's an important thing. And so when you have a properly structured insurance portfolio, it helps with creating leverage to go into your investment portfolio and business as well. Have you noticed that a lot of people are not properly set up in business? They have W-2 jobs, wage earner jobs, which again, there's nothing wrong with. But is that where you see a lot of families just hang their hat on that job income?
Oh yeah. Well, you're talking, I hear 2 different things. So you're talking about W-2 employees.
Well, I'm talking about what you've seen out there and just in the field of helping a lot of people. I know you help business owners, but when you see a lot of families, do they focus all of their income just on them going to work?
Oh, sure.
And they haven't created a business that can transfer.
Well, and that's not for everyone. I mean, not everyone's, going to be a business owner. You can certainly build wealth on a W-2
absolutely
earning. Yeah, again, it all ties back to point number 1, though. It's just a lack of knowledge or understanding all the different options that are out there for you and all the different strategies. I think one of the biggest misconceptions, like you mentioned, the Kennedy name and some of those bigger names, is that in order to employ some of these strategies, you've already got to be uber rich. Like, I don't have $1 million, so that's not something that's accessible to me. And well, at some point, neither did they. Like, their family started several generations ago of planting a seed and starting to do something. And there's a commercial out right now, and I think it's for an online degree. I want to say maybe University of Phoenix.
Okay.
But it's a woman narrating, and it touches my heart, especially just as a mother, because I know that we have dreams for our kids of setting them up, and we make sacrifices in a lot of areas in our life in order so their life will be better at some point, and so their children's lives will be better. And she talks about it. It shows her going through all these years of grinding and working and trying to do better And then the end it says, and and if for you, my great granddaughter, that gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want to do, it was all worth it. And I think that's what one of the things that I try to do to let people know is that there's strategies that these major companies are using, and that some of these families have been using for a long time, and they're not secrets. They're not doing anything particularly special.
They're really
I hate to
not.
say it that way. They're really not. They just know something you don't know.
Yeah.
And so one of my goals when I work with families or when I work with the business owner is to show them all those different options and say, you can do these too. You can use these same strategies as an individual and for your family. And you can put things in place that will change your children's lives because, I think you posted that video of all the kids starting the race on the line. And then this kid starts here, and this kid starts here, and this kid starts here, and that's the stuff that you can use these strategies so that your children start a little bit ahead, but their children start a little bit farther ahead, and so on. So I think that's, but that commercial, you might want to look it up. I believe it's University of Phoenix.
Okay.
But she talks about that. If my grind and my work and my everything puts you in position to be able to make so many choices that I couldn't make, then it was all worth it.
So I hope you understand and appreciate the strategies that were shared tonight. How can you really, really take a deeper dive into understanding how you can benefit from these strategies? Well, what Laura and I are going to be doing is a series of events, and we want to invite you to be a part of that. Do we have that date for December after Thanksgiving?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But we'll have it shortly.
Okay.
We'll have it
So we're going to have a date.
By your next broadcast, we'll certainly.
Okay. So we're going to have a date. Ideally, plan on the Thursday or the week after Thanksgiving. We're going to have an open house. It could be online, but our goal is to have it to where you can come to a physical location free of charge, leave your checkbooks, because you're not going to come in there to buy anything. But we're going to host a workshop, because when we're in her environment, at her office, she can talk, she can teach, she can do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. We're going to put on one evening open house event for you to get a taste of more in-depth information of what we were talking about tonight. January 4th, mark that on your calendars, starts a 12-night workshop that will extend out over a period of 6 months. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 2 nights a month. And we're looking at the option of some of that virtual, some of that in person. Those of you that are listening that are not in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area, it will be available for you virtually. The idea of this course is to not only take your financial literacy to a completely different level. If you are wanting to buy a home or you wanting to start a business and credit is a challenge, it is going to be a hands-on, done with you credit restoration 12 weeks. But in those weeks, we're going to be learning financial strategies. You're going to learn tax strategies with our CPA. There's going to be so many things packed into this 12-week course. But to give you a sample of the things you're going to be learning, we're going to be inviting you to this open house the week after Thanksgiving. I'll be posting that. If you're interested, inbox me, shoot me an inbox message on Facebook, or shoot me an email at ericlamar@awholenewmelifestyle.com. if you're interested in the dates for the open house. And we're going to open that up for people to come. It's free of charge. It's going to be a night full of education. And then if you want to join the workshop that starts on the 4th of January, you'll be given more details about that as well.
Yeah, and it'll also be just an opportunity to come out. I know a lot of you have already met Eric, and you know Eric, and you've had interaction with him in person, but this is all about relationship building, and it will give me the opportunity to kind of shake your hand, hear a little bit more about you, about your personal goals, and I can answer more questions and tell you a little bit more about my planning process. Like Eric said, leave the checkbook at home, and in fact, when you meet with me in my planning process, I'll never ask you to bring that, FYI. But that's just something that I really like to dive in person with people.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value in the go-to meetings and virtual and live and all this, but at some point when you're going to make a decision to do something like this, it's fair to want to sit down and say, who are you? What are you doing? What are we doing? What am I investing in? And what am I going to get out of it? And sitting down over a cup of coffee or something like that is just an easier way for us to kind of get to know each other a little bit, kind of get a feel for what we want to do, and then make decisions whether or not it makes sense to move forward together.
So thank you for tuning in tonight. This has been great. It is our hope that you have gotten some extreme amount of value. Please take these 3 strategies and understand the value of the mindset, making some shifts up here to want to be able to grow and enhance, change your financial thermostat, understand the value, and be open to protecting your assets, including yourself, your children, your spouse, significant others, your business, employees. I mean, there's so many things that need to be protected so that your legacy can continue to grow, and then understanding the value of business and being excited about your investments growing. We're looking forward to giving you the details on the open house and you being there. And please share this information to others. Laura, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
For popping in tonight and joining us.
Yeah.
And look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone have a great night.
Good night.